Drury University, which means I'm basically in my 5th fall semester of the music therapy degree. And basically what that means is I am a music major, but I am also like a psychology major as well. It's pretty interesting, but it is technically a music major, so that's why I wanted to come and talk to you guys. Like Cranky said as well, I'm doing this for my I'm doing it for a grade, but I'm really glad to have the opportunity to come and share this with you guys. How many of you have ever heard of music therapy before? That is awesome. That's a bigger response than I was expecting, honestly, because usually when I talk about it, people are like, oh, what's that? Is that, like sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya to each other? No, there's a lot more dimensions to it than that. But that's what we're here to talk about today. So, what is music therapy? So by the American Music Therapy Association guidelines, it is a clinical, evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. That's a really long definition. An easier way to say that is the use of music to reach therapeutic goals. So basically, we're just like your regular counselor, your speech therapist, a physical therapist, but we use music to reach the kind of goals that you would have in those practices. So there's all kinds of different ways you can use music therapy, especially if you're musically motivated, which most of you probably are because you're here and you like to sing together, which is actually very therapeutic. It's been shown that people who do sing together in groups have a higher or less rate of depression and anxiety, and it creates a good group cohesion and a sense of community and belonging. So singing and music is something that is really good for us, as studies show. This is a lovely picture of what music therapy might look like. This is actually one of the girls at our music therapy clinic on campus at Drury. We're lucky enough to have a clinic where we mostly work with people of all ages with developmental disabilities. I think our music therapist there sees anywhere from 8 to 9 groups and individuals in one day, so she's kept very busy. I believe we have 3 music therapists working there right now. They used to take interns, but not anymore, which actually, a little bit background, I got an internship just recently. There's a music therapy program in Monette, which is an hour away from Springfield, which is where Drury is, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. But I'll be doing basically the same thing, working with individuals with developmental disabilities. When I say that, do you guys know what developmental disabilities mean? Yeah, it's basically like any learning disabilities. You could have autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, all kinds of different things that would maybe make you develop in a different way than what's typically expected. So what does music therapy look like? Here is a long list of some interventions that we do in music therapy, depending on what your goal is that you're trying to reach. We do a lot of songwriting in music therapy. It's very musically based. Like I said, you're a musician and a psychologist, so basically you're a musician with clinical skills. So you have to be able to kind of be a little bit of a composer. I don't know if you guys still have music theory here. Do you guys do that?
We have an IB music class.
IB, yeah. So basically, your first 2 years in college, that's what you're doing. You're developing your musicianship. And it's really cool. You have to be able to hear 1, 4, 6 chords. You have to be able to listen to a song and say, oh, okay, this song goes from 1, 4, 5 order. I can play this as long as I know what key it's in. You have to do a lot of transposing because, let's say, you're singing a song that's in C major and it's way too low for your lady client, so you take it up a notch to A, D major or something like that. But you have to be able to do that on the fly. So you have to be very flexible and very adaptive, but the musicianship is a big part of music therapy. So if you want to expand on that kind of lifestyle and, kind of harness that kind of skill, this is a good position that you maybe want to consider in the future, because also it's good if you like talking to people and getting to know people and helping them, because that's the whole point of this job, is to help people. Like I said, actually this semester I am in my practicum, and I'm working with a group of women who have substance abuse issues. It's a recovery center, and we do a lot of songwriting with them because it helps them kind of process through their emotions and stuff. And I'm actually going to quote some research later about why this works and why it is evidence-based and why we even do it in the first place. Because why do it if it doesn't even work, or if it doesn't even have, credential to it? There's music-assisted movement. We did this a lot with one of the patients I worked with who had cerebral palsy, which kind of looks like beating a drum with your arm in different positions. So like we would hold up a drum, a paddle drum, and we would tell the client to beat here, beat over here, beat above his head, beat below, just so he can work on his range of motion. Because if you know what cerebral palsy is, it's a neurological disorder which basically limits your movement and how you can control your body. You can't control it on your own very well. So we use therapy and music to motivate people to move around their arms like they normally wouldn't. We have adaptive music lessons. So we do teach people music. If you've ever considered, being a music educator, there's some of that along with this as well, but you're hoping to reach some other goals rather than a performance. You're not really focusing on the end product. You're focusing on the process it takes to get there. And then we have lyric analysis. That's your basic, poetry analysis. We sing a song for you. We talk about it and reflect on it. It works really well with the substance abuse group, definitely. Then there's rhythmic group instrumentation, which that is kind of your kumbaya kind of thing, where we're all sitting in a circle and we're playing drums together. It's a good way it's very cathartic. It's a good way to release emotions and express yourself in a safe environment that maybe you wouldn't normally be able to do it in. And then there's instrumental improvisation, which kind of goes along with rhythmic group instrumentation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be drums. Yesterday in our session, I actually took a xylophone and we were in the key of G, so I took out a few of the metal keys in it and made it to where whatever the client played, it would be within the key signature. So there was no wrong way for them to play the instrument. So it was a very stress-free environment for them, and they really enjoyed it and were able to kind of let off some gas. And these ladies are here for recovery, so they have a lot of emotions. They have depression, anxiety, guilt, and all this stuff, because addiction is a very difficult thing to learn how to manage and live with. So, but music therapy, if you're musically motivated, really does help you bridge those gaps to goals that you're wanting to reach. And then there's music for relaxation. You see that a lot in hospital settings. Music therapists work in a variety of settings. Substance abuse is just one of them, but we can work in schools. We work in hospice care, which is end-of-life care, people who have 6 months or left to live. That's a very taxing, or I don't want to say taxing, but it's a tough profession to be able to be there for somebody whenever in their final stages of life. But music, I've always said, is the connecting factor. It's a good way for us to connect without really having to say what's on our mind. It's easier to sometimes sing it than to say it, So end-of-life care really uses music wonderfully, and it's good for bereavement as well. And like I said, in the hospital, we usually do it for, let's say there's a patient who is having a very painful procedure being done, like their bandages being changed after a really bad burn. Music therapist comes in, improvises some finger-picked melody on the guitar, maybe does some humming to a song that they like, because all music therapy is ISO principle. And that means that we use patient-preferred music. So, of course, the music that's going to work best for people is the music that they like and can connect with the most. So we always try to do things that they enjoy, because we're all there for them. So that is music for relaxation, and then there's music as a distraction, which is also used in hospitals a lot, mostly for children as well. It actually there was a study done that showed music therapists in the room with children who were receiving shots actually had less difficulties with the child, were able to distract the child. They didn't need to sedate the child. It saved them money in the end because they didn't have to sedate the child in these situations. And that's good research for music therapy because it shows hospitals that were worth it for what they're charging for, less money for the patients at the hospital and less difficulties for the hospital staff. And then there's also music for reality orientation. We use that in your assisted living facility situations because, especially in memory care units, people with dementia, it's been shown that music is one of the most powerful tools to use for people who have dementia because despite the fact that people with dementia are very confused a lot of the time, they can still usually recall music, and it's because music connects to not just one part of your body or your brain. It connects to a whole bunch of different parts of it when you use music. It's not just using your speech, it's using your listening skills, your visual skills, everything like that, and it creates multiple different neural pathways, and so those pathways stay with us into old age. And so I've worked in a memory care unit last 2 semesters ago, and we would sit down and, people who didn't speak for a whole week because that's what sometimes dementia does, it isolates people. We come in with the guitar and we sing sippity-doo-dah, sippity-day, my oh my, how are you feeling today? And they'll start singing along. And it's amazing to see the effect that music has on these people because in a life that can be very isolating, especially when you're living in an assisted living facility, your quality of life doesn't always go down, but we try to do things to make sure that you're having quality of life, and music is one of those things that offers that excitement and that brain stimulation because we need to keep ourselves stimulated or else bad things happen with our brains because that's just how humans work. And then there is lyric consonant distinction. We use that with patients with dysphagia or dysphagia? I think that's what the word is, which is a condition. It happens after having a traumatic brain injury and you lose the ability to speak. So there's actually a pretty well-known politician. She's one of the leading music therapy advocates that we like to talk about. Her name is Gabby Gifford, and she was actually shot in the head. I think it was like maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, and she lost the ability to speak. She lost her speech. Anytime she tried to speak, it wouldn't come out the way she wanted it to. She couldn't recall words, and actually through music therapy, I'm pretty sure there was even a documentary done on it. The music therapist recorded her whole progress, and she does speak now because of music therapy. Lyric consonant distinction could be something like, okay, I want you to sing 8 ba's to ba ba baran. So ba 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 baran, and you try to get them to sing it with you, just to get those consonants out, because we're basically teaching them to speak all over again because they lost that ability. But music, she is, you can hear her talk now, and you might not even be able to tell that she lost the ability to speak just because of the progress that she's made with music therapy. And of course, none of this is to replace actual speech therapy. I am a huge believer in intersectionality, and one of the great things that you can do as a music therapist is work with other disciplines. So there's many times where music therapists and speech therapists will work together to create a session plan and reach the goals that the speech therapist wants to reach while also using the music therapist in that session. So it's not just speech therapy. You can use it with occupational therapy, physical therapy, all kinds of stuff like that. And then, of course, there are many other music interventions that you can use to reach all kinds of goals, but this is just a quick list of some of the most notable or most used, probably, music therapy interventions. And then I have a short video to actually show you guys. This is from my school, Drury University. This was taken with some of the music therapists that used to work there, working with the Rivendell Assisted Living Facility. All right.
Keeping them engaged and active during the day is not only benefits them, but it benefits the caregiver as well. It's less stressful for us when they're less stressed.
I would definitely say it benefits the residents immensely. It creates quality of life for them. Having a professional come in and be able to direct them in music, which people respond great with, not only gets them stimulated physically and cognitively, but it really brings out their creative side.
It keeps them engaged. It's a great activity for them to be social and interactive in a positive atmosphere.
It helps them build relationships with their peers, which is super important to have a sense of community in your facility.
We do engage in music that is from their era, and they love, You Are My Sunshine. They love, Blue Skies and Billy Doodah, like the classic country. And it's so important to be able to get to know their names because it helps to remind them of who they are, and it helps to let them know that you're invested in them.
With a lot of Alzheimer's residents, they have what's called sundowners. Around 3:30 or 4, they start getting agitated, wanting to leave. And the more active that you have them and the more engaged you have them during the day, the less of that you face.
In all areas and stages of your life, you need to have that lightheartedness. It brings sort of a peace to you, I think, whenever you're able to just laugh and enjoy the time. Laughter also creates endorphins and gets good chemicals flowing in the brain, and I think that that's super important, especially when you have Alzheimer's or dementia, to have that positive mood and that positive vibe. Having a group that is not only just music, but it's something that they remember, something they're able to sing along to, or to have like a physical stimulation in the evening, it's really important because they're going to be using that energy, whether it's something positive or negative.
It's hard to not like music for any of them, no matter what their style of music was growing up. You definitely want to add this to your calendar.
There were a lot of my professors in that video, actually, which is amazing to see because they're wonderful people. So yeah, that's just like a little insight of what music therapy actually looks like in a geriatric setting. That's just one of the many settings that we work in. I wanted to talk to you guys about what music therapy is not, because there's actually a lot of discrepancy on people who say that they do music therapy, but really, are they doing trained professional music therapy? To be a music therapist, you have to be board certified. In the U.S., you have to be board certified music therapist to be able to legally practice music therapy, which basically looks like a board certification test after you have, I believe, 120 hours of clinical experience, which is what the internship that I'm going to be going into is for. But yes, so we see people all the time maybe playing music for adults in assisted living on an iPod. I've seen a very popular video going around of this older gentleman who they put headphones on him after receiving a a donated iPod, and as soon as they give him music, he's alive and awake, and he's singing and he's dancing, and it's wonderful. And I love it because it really does show the power of music. But in the video, they refer to it as music therapy, but it's not, because you don't have that facilitation of a music therapist in the process. You're not getting those therapeutic goals reached. It's music for enjoyment, not for therapy. So you also have playing music on a CD player for children in the hospital. Maybe whilst these kids are waiting in the waiting room, waiting to be seen, somebody might be playing music for them to maybe relieve stress for them. As long as they're not board certified, it's not music therapy. It's music for enjoyment, which is the same for playing guitar for adults in assisted living facility. Teachers playing instrument in a classroom to stimulate students. That is music as a distraction almost, or not as much as for therapy, but using it as a tool, an education tool really. And then singing chants as a group, like your sports team and stuff, that's not music therapy. You don't have that board certified clinical therapist in there. And then performing a concert or set for a population. Performances typically are music therapy because, like I said earlier, your goal is the process and not the performance, the finished project. It's the progress that you make in the process. So why do music therapy? This was the research that I was talking about earlier. Every time we get a new program or a client or a session, we usually have to complete a session plan after making an assessment on our clients, because it's just like a therapist, You go into the therapist, they do an assessment on you, and then they create a treatment plan for you that they hope will reach the goals that you want to reach while you're with your therapist. So in those session plans, we have to have research backing up why we're doing what we're doing in the session, because we want to stay as credentialed as possible. We want to stay legit, if you will. So a study done by Michael Silverman says results of, this was for rhythmic music improvisation, which was the drumming that I was telling you about earlier, group drumming. Results indicated that participants in the experimental condition had significantly higher problem recognition, desire for help, treatment readiness, and total motivation mean scores than participants in the waitlist control condition. That's a lot of words, but basically it's saying this person did a research experiment where they had one group that they gave music therapy to, and the group that they were presenting it to was a group of people with substance abuse. And so they presented it in a music therapy session, and then they did a normal session, or a clinical session with a counselor, and compared the scores of their problem recognition, desire for help, treatment readiness, and total motivation. And they showed that the group that got music therapy as well as counseling improved in those areas. So this is just more research to help back up the uses or the credential of music therapy. And then in group songwriting, this was with actually a HIV/AIDS positive group that was getting music therapy to help process their condition. But group songwriting provides a laboratory for behavior and language modality for individuals who are withdrawn, for helping to both organize their thinking and encourage language expression. So it's kind of what I said earlier, where music therapy gives us that space to feel comfortable to express ourselves and to dig deeper into what's going on in our lives and our emotions and our feelings, depression and anxiety. And there's lots of research out there. Music therapy is actually the #1 researched alternative art therapy there is out there. And that's just because it's been around for so long. KU was actually the second school to ever offer it as a major, I believe in like 1912 or 1920 time. They've been on it for a long time. So, and that's another thing. Music therapy, it's kind of an exclusive exclusive major if you're wanting to go into it. There's only about 3 schools here in Missouri that offer it as a major, and Drury is one of them. And the reason why I chose Drury was because it's only 2 hours away in Springfield, and my family lives here, and it's a smaller private liberal arts school. It's about the same size as this high school, and you're having smaller classroom sizes, which I really liked. And you're getting more one-on-one interaction with your professors, which was another thing that I really wanted, because I learn in very different ways than some people, and it's easier to, I don't know, have that face-to-face contact with your professor, and really get to know them to help them progress your education. And that's the next thing I was going to talk about is the music therapy education. This is actually what a typical drum circle looks like. You have a big circle of chairs and then a huge pile of instruments in the middle of the room, and the therapist usually just says, grab whatever you want and, play on it in a way that you like. There's not really a wrong way to play a drum as long as you're not damaging the instrument, which is kind of, it can happen, but you've all seen how a drum is used. It's not likely that somebody will break it. Music therapy education, basically that is like, you have to take your music theory classes, your training, and sight singing. So I don't know, whenever I was here, Mr. Perry and Mr. Krinke had us do sight reading, I think like 5 minutes every day at the beginning of class. And, yeah, and it's an amazing practice because it's a very good skill to have if you're wanting to continue your music education. You take music history, you have to take jazz history, which I personally liked because I didn't know anything about jazz till I took that class, and it's a wonderful genre. You also have to take conducting because obviously you're leading groups, so it's a good skill to be able to conduct everybody. You take a lot of psychology courses. You take lifespan and development, psychology 101, abnormal psychology. You even have to take some biology. I had to take human physiology to learn how the body works, and it was a very interesting class. Right now, you do your field studies or your practicum, which is basically your class where you do your observations and your field work in the profession that you want to go into. And then, of course, you have your ensembles that you're a part of. As a music major, you have to have a principal instrument. My principal instrument is voice. I do voice lessons. But as a music therapist, the #1 tool you use is your voice and your guitar. So you have to learn how to play guitar. I showed up as a freshman and I had to pick up guitar and piano. My experience with piano is pretty limited. I played violin here from grade school till the end of high school. I stopped doing violin whenever I started college because I had to pick up the guitar. And so I switched my violin for my guitar. And it's been a really fun ride. But so you're also immersing yourself in all kinds of music abilities. So you have to, and of course we use the piano and guitar because they're the most flexible to use, I would say. You can always carry around your guitar and play something. But a part of that, you just have to keep yourself immersed in music. So I'm in choirs, I'm in, we have like group choirs, community choirs, that's the word I'm looking for, that I'm a part of, because it's just a good idea to keep yourself immersed in that music. And so you also have to, with your principal instrument, you have to do recital, which means performing in front of people, which is not my forte, I'm going to be honest, but I've grown a lot as a therapist because you learn that it's not about the performance, it's about the experience in which everybody is in. But it is a good way to get you prepared to perform in front of clients and stuff because you can't be afraid to make music if you're there for the client. Because if you're worried about how you're performing, you're going to be focusing on yourself more than you'll be focusing on the client. So that's one of the struggles I've had to face with overcoming my anxieties about that. But Drury has done a great job at training me to become the best music therapist I can, and I actually am doing my sessions this semester with the lady who leads the music therapy department at Drury. Her name is Natalie Wodlarczyk. She's going to be the one who's grading this, and she's done a wonderful job at preparing me for my internship, and so I can fully become a professional, basically, in my internship. But that's just a little snapshot of what education as a music therapist looks like. And then this is the part where I just talk about why I do music therapy or why I wanted to do it. I have a deep connection to music. I always have, ever since I was young. Actually, the earliest music experience I can remember is my mom bought me a cassette player, or you guys gave me a cassette player, and I had a Britney Spears cassette tape and a Backstreet Boys cassette tape, and I would just listen to it all the time while I played with my dolls, and I would make music videos and all that stuff. I would pretend I was in a music video. But music's just been something that I've carried with me my whole life, and then whenever I came here, Creaky was actually the person who first told me about music therapy. And so he was the one that kind of like opened that door for me. I basically did a tour at Drury, and I got to talk to one of the music therapists there, and that fall I said that I was interested in music therapy as a major, and they created my whole schedule to be a music therapist major, and I just kind of got thrown into it. But I'm so glad I did, because I knew it was something I was interested in. I was just kind of on the fence about it, and it just took that little push to really immerse myself in it and learn about the profession itself. Not only that, but I've also seen the power that music has over people sometimes. I actually have a cousin who is developmentally challenged, and he does music therapy, and I'm pretty sure he has autism and a couple other diagnoses that I can't remember, but music is one of those things that can actually draw him out of his world, his own little world, and it helps him communicate with the people around him in his life, and it helps him have a more fulfilling life than he normally would had he not been musically motivated. And it's wonderful, the thing that music can do for people if you are musically motivated. I'm sure some of you have connected with music on a very personal level, deep level. Hi. It's good to see you too. It's crazy. I haven't seen him in like 5 years. But yeah, I graduated here in 2014, so it's been a while. But yeah, that is my story on music therapy and why it's a wonderful profession, and I thank you all for letting me come here today and share my experiences with you and my knowledge with you, and I hope you all enjoyed it.